Hello, everybody, and welcome to College Football Recap. This is Week 5. Kind of a crazy weekend. I mean, comparatively, not that. I mean, Friday night obviously produced a result that I think definitely changed some things, and there was, a few upsets. Nothing too major. Again, other than the USC Washington State thing. No, I really wouldn't call that a major upset. I mean, a ranked team beating a ranked opponent, or a ranked team beating a top 5 team at their place is not, as insane as, you'd think. But anyway, let's get right into it. So that first game, yes, the USC Washington State game, definitely lived up to the billing that it was given. ESPN kind of hyped this game up, and, it did definitely kind of, I guess, live up to it, that's for sure. I was really impressed. I watched this game. Out here on the East Coast, it was fun staying up till 2 o'clock in the morning, and then getting up at 11, 10 to watch game day. But definitely it was a good game. Worth staying up that late. I mean, it wasn't one of those games like I just wasted 3 hours watching that. It was definitely worth watching. For starters, I think the biggest takeaway I had out of it was USC I think Sam Darnold just needs to get his confidence back. I think they were saying that on the telecast, and you could see it. He was too many times just seemed under. Again, like I said in my preview video when I was recording it, watching the game, is that you couldn't even you'd be shocked to know that Darnold was the guy who was supposed to be the number 1 pick in the draft, and Falk was supposed to be the guy who was not. Who was the maybe their mid-round pick. I think you'd be kind of shocked about that based on their play. Falk kind of looked like more. I mean, he definitely has his weaknesses, but in that game, he definitely showed his strengths, which is the fact that he can put those touch passes on the. He may not have the strongest arm, but you get a receiver open, and 9 times out of 10, he's going to hit him right, right between the numbers. And most of the time, when he actually passes for stuff, it was drop passes. It wasn't him, so I was really impressed with him. But at the same point, I think if you look at this game from a thing, it was more of Washington State played really well. And again, it came down to what I said in the previous show, is that I thought that the beginning of the obviously they exchanged stuff, but I think what it came down to is that I said whoever won the first drive of the second half would win the game. If you look at it, USC went down, and USC did not score on the first drive. First drive, Washington State went down and got a field goal. Well, it was the difference in the game, field goal. Really, again, though, is the other thing is Washington State played very mistake-free football, and that's something that'll win you games, especially when you're a ranked team and you're playing another ranked team. That's usually the difference is turnovers. Which team comes and makes the least amount of turnovers, which team, it is talent-wise have some of it. But I think in those games where you have 2 very even opponents, turnovers are the key to the game. And I think, obviously, the last play of the game for USC was a turnover when they were trying to mount a drive to tie the game or, win it. But if you look at the game, the difference was the turnovers, and I think the fact that, there wasn't that many, I don't think. I think USC committed. But it was just momentum changers that kept USC out of it wasted possessions. And that's what it comes down to, is you can make all the turnovers, they don't put any points on the board, but you're still losing the chance at points. And regardless, that's 1 or 2 possessions you'll never get back. And it also gets the other defense fired up. So if they're, starting to, have to dog it, or whatever you want to call it, get lazy or, get tired, well, all of a sudden they get a turnover and it pumps them back up because they're like, okay, it pumps you back up. And I think that's a definite thing that happens. And I think in this game it was one of those things where USC's turnovers did pump up the Washington State defense when it did seem to be almost on the verge of, getting tired or, But I will say this, Washington State proved that they are definitely a top 15 team. I don't know if I'd put them in the playoff conversation quite yet. I'd like to see them play a game in which, obviously they're going to have their shot to get to the playoff. There's no doubt in my mind if they go undefeated, they're in. They're in the Pac-12. They still have a game against Washington on their schedule. They'd still have to play either, another good team in the Pac-12 championship. That's only the ones I can think of off the top of my head. They still have to play. They're not going to be lacking. They're going to have enough to get into the playoff if they win. Obviously if they go undefeated. But will they go undefeated? Probably not. But they're definitely a top 15 team. So yeah, that was a really good game. A lot of coverage was put to it. So anyway, yeah. Next we have Miami at Duke. I watched this one. This game was just so weird because it seemed like, I don't know, it was like the whole time you thought Duke was going to do something because their defense kept making stop after stop after stop, and you said, okay, here we go. This is the drive. They're going to go out and do something. Miami turned the ball over a few times, and you just thought, okay, this is going to be, the drive in which they do something, and they just never did. I mean, it was like, all credit to Miami. I mean, their defense just completely just shut them down. They had nothing really going. And I think that just, and maybe that was just because, Duke was, I saw the 4-0 next to Duke's name and said, okay, this team's going to be, good enough to pull out this game, given the circumstances of Miami. I thought they were going to come back late and win it, but they never did. And I think it comes down to that Miami's defense was just, too good for them. And, I think Duke was just off their game. And, you can't do that against when a ranked opponent comes to your door, comes with, you're playing a ranked opponent on the, at home. You can't just put out a dud like that. And if you're going to try to, be proven that you're, okay, you deserve the respect for a 4-0 team. I don't think Duke did that. In fact, they looked more, they kind of lost a lot of respect, I think, because of that loss, because they basically got steamrolled at home, and they didn't really put up much of a fight on the offensive end, especially. I mean, their defense did pretty good, and I think the late scoring by Miami was just a test. I mean, just was the fact that Duke's defense got gassed, which happens, obviously. Yeah. Next, we got Northwestern and Wisconsin. Oh, I forgot to put Wisconsin's ranking. They're 10th, though. Yeah, it doesn't matter. I know that. That's all that matters. That was a good game. I watched it. Definitely, though, Northwestern made some mistakes late. I'd say not late. I'd say Wisconsin late made a lot of mistakes, and then Northwestern made the ultimate mistake in the end of the game. When a defender's bearing down on you in the end zone and you're outside the tackle box, just throw it past the line of scrimmage and get that ball out of there. I mean, that's basically what that game comes down to. I mean, if he wouldn't have, who knows how it would have happened if they wouldn't have gotten that safety. And it's easy for me to sit here and say that, but at the same point, that defender was in his eye. He could see that defender running at him. It wasn't like it was out of nowhere. I mean, the guy was standing, he could see him for a good 2 or 3 seconds. That's enough time to get rid of that ball. I think he was just trying to make a hero play, and I think that's the problem. When I think Northwestern I think that's the difference between, a really good team and a great team is those plays right there. But at the same point, I think Northwestern just is not as experienced as they have been in years past, and I think maybe you'd see a different result in some other years, but, at the same time, yeah. But definitely a good game. Wisconsin, in the second half, took over, and then obviously near the end of the second half, they ended up kind of, letting some points go, but I don't know. Again, that Wisconsin defense in the second, that Wisconsin team just in the second half just seems to turn into like an anaconda, and it just starts to, at first you can move around a little bit, but then as the game goes on and as the second half especially starts to hit, they just like tie you up so you can hardly do anything. All credit to Northwestern. I mean, they came out and put up some points, which nobody has done in the second half against Wisconsin. So that's definitely, But, I mean, this is also, they're playing a Big Ten opponent for the first time. They're playing an actual, BYU, Utah State, and I think I forget who else they played. But, they're not going to give them the challenge in Northwestern will, and I think Northwestern gave them a challenge, and, they wouldn't back down to Wisconsin. And I think that's definitely a learning point and definitely something good for them. Next, we have IU and Penn State. This game almost, Penn State came out and, put up 28 points in the first quarter. But you never got the feeling, until, later, but I don't know. This game was definitely one of those games where you looked at and you said, well, Penn State's winning. And it's one of those games that I think they survived and advanced. I mean, definitely, if you look at the score, you think, oh, they blew them out. And this game was definitely closer than what the score says. I mean, IU had several chances to come back and tie the game, or, to make this a game. It was 28-14, at half, and IU got few possessions before that, and after that, to make that deficit less, and they just couldn't do it. And I think they were having a quarterback problem. I don't know if Lego got hurt or what the deal with that was, but I think they were just changing them out. But I think they were having an identity crisis with that. But at the same point, I think they were just trying to get something to work because they knew if they could get something to work, they could win the game. And I think they took that risk, saying, what, let's try this guy. I forget his name, but it's sort of an R. But I think they took that risk, saying, well, if we win, if we can get something going, we can win this game. And I think it just never did. And that's that. Next we have Notre Dame or Miami, Ohio. This game really didn't deserve much coverage just because, Notre Dame's... This game you probably could figure out going in what the score would be. I mean, Miami, Ohio was a bowl team last year, so not the worst competition, but they would have nothing, that's not a game you look at and go, oh, they'll have a chance to go into South Bend and win. Ohio State and Rutgers, this game went exactly the way I thought it would go. I don't know if I said anything about it, but I kind of had, this game always seems to be a blowout. I mean, Ohio State always seems to blow out Rutgers. I don't know what it is. Why Rutgers can never put up a fight, but it seems to happen. Next, we have Alabama and Ole Miss. This game was even worse. 66-3. No, I think Alabama just is proving that they are the #1 team in the country, and there's nobody that can beat them, until the playoff comes around. I don't think anybody in the SEC could do it. I mean, sure, you have teams like Auburn and Georgia, but I think that Alabama is just going to have one bad game. Maybe it will happen in the SEC championship or in the Iron Bowl, but it's going to be one of those things where, even then, I think they could afford a loss very easily because you can point and say, who else has beaten good teams like that? I mean, that's 66-3 again. Ole Miss has their turmoil, but every game they played in the SEC, Alabama's won by 63 and 59 points so far. I mean, I don't think they played anybody else in the SEC since then, other than those two. Maybe they have, but still blowing out two SEC opponents by 59 and 63 is insane. And Vandy was not that bad. Vandy gave Florida all they could handle. Florida, they at least competed against Florida at the Swamp. And at home against Alabama, they got beat up. There's no other way to put it. 59-0, that's insane. I think Alabama is just on a different level, almost. Now, can somebody drag them off that level? Yeah. It's not impossible, but I think won't be until the last few weeks of the season in which they play Auburn, Georgia in the SEC championship game, most likely. And then whoever they play in the playoff, maybe. Like a team like, I don't even know, like Penn State or somebody that I don't know, Penn State. I don't know. Somebody that has to take them off their game, that's for sure. Wisconsin still is in that discussion too. Man, Wisconsin never has much success against Alabama. At least recently. I think they played one. They only played once. Never mind. I was thinking they played more than that. But it seems like Wisconsin just doesn't match up well against that. Which is okay. Not many teams do. In the last 10 years since Saban's been the coach, not many people line up well against Alabama. Unless you're Louisiana Monroe that first season. Every good coach has an embarrassing loss their first season. Okay, well, most do. There's some that don't, but most. It's one of those things where your first season is always going to be your toughest because that's the season in which you inherit all the previous coaches, players, and you have to do something with it. And obviously, sometimes it can go well. Like Charlie Strong's turned that. We're going to talk about that later, but he's done pretty good with the South Florida program. But at the same point, that's, I think, just Charlie Strong being a really good head coach, and I think he just didn't fit very well at Texas. So, anyway, next we got the game of the week, technically. I don't know. This game, I thought Virginia Tech would play a lot better. I honestly did. It's kind of shocking that they kind of came out and played the way they did. I thought this game would be a lot closer. I think the score makes it seem closer with 31-17 win for Clemson, but at the same point, I think you look at it, and again, Clemson just looks to be at another level almost. But at the same point, I think, well, it's easy to say it now, but something just tells me we're going to have a part 3 of Clemson, Alabama. I don't know what it is. Maybe somebody else will come up and beat Clemson, but I don't even think Clemson plays anybody else that big. They have to play Florida State, but Florida State's not that as impressive as they have been in years past. So that's not even I don't think Clemson plays anybody else until the ACC championship game, in which they might run into Virginia Tech again. That's about the only loss I could see them getting. They'll probably drop one against somebody they shouldn't, and that just happens. But at the same point, if they can, again, one-loss team, the playoffs always going to have your own. Not everybody's going to go undefeated, and it's going to be which team, that one-loss team, and they're going to determine how the one-loss team works out is, what's that loss? Is it against, Virginia Tech in the ACC championship game, or is it against, a team that has no business being even in a game against you. I mean, that's what it's going to come down to, and I think that's going to be I don't know. I think Alabama and Clemson have an advantage because of the way they've been beating, because the teams now for Clemson's strength of schedule, and then Alabama's just sheer fact of what they're doing to everyone. I mean, this is just ridiculous. But yeah. Anyway, kind of rapid fire now. Washington beat Oregon State 42-7. Not a shock. Obviously a better team. Not much of a shock there. Oregon State is not what they, not anything you're shocked about. Next is Georgia over Tennessee. That one was kind of one of those where I said maybe Tennessee could pull something out of their hat, but I mean, I don't know. I think that Tennessee program hit its height, and they could make a resurgence. I definitely see it because of the luck they seem to possess. But they're going to have to get some talent back first before they can even make a run at that. Next is Mississippi State and Auburn. Auburn wins 49-10. That game I think was a little underrated, but at the same point, I think it was a game you looked at and said, yeah, this is going to go bad. It seems like Mississippi State, when they play teams like that, they always seem to get blown out. And this seems to always happen. I mean, when they were number one in the country with Dak Prescott, maybe that was different, but I mean, even then, I think for some reason when Mississippi State gets into the game as a top 23, 24, they seem to, I mean, they did beat LSU, but I mean, is LSU that great of a win? I think that game kind of elevated them to a level in which people kind of looked at them differently, but then when we realized LSU wasn't that good, it's like, oh, yeah, LSU put up an egg, that's for sure. Next to Oklahoma State and Texas Tech. This game was a lot closer, or a lot, I think, different. I mean, I watched a little bit of it. I was the bowling alley at this point in time. But I do think I watched some of it, and it definitely looked like Oklahoma State was the better team. That's for sure. I mean, I think the score makes it a little closer than it should be. But next, Murray State obviously had no shot against Louisville. They did beat the spread, though, so that's maybe something. I don't know. It was 47.5 or something like that. Forget what I said. I said it in the preview show, but that wasn't even close. Like I actually picked Louisville to beat the spread in that, but what's she gonna do? 55-10. You can't be, as a Louisville fan, you have to obviously be pretty happy that you did what you needed to do. I mean, that's what you want to do against those teams. Just blow them out. You don't want it to be close. You don't want them to, just because you don't want it to start to tear down your team, because it can be. Winning a team against a team like that, even in a close game, actually hurts confidence a lot, because you're like, we can't even beat this team. What are we supposed to do against like Florida State or something? Florida State's not that good. Maybe we should use something else. But anyway. I mean, Florida State's good. I mean, don't get me wrong there. I just don't think they're elite. They're not what people You're not looking at them going, oh, you're not shaking in your you're not shaking in your shoe going, oh, goodness. You're not scared of them. I mean, definitely they're a good team, and they're a team that deserves a lot of respect for, what they're trying to do. They have a true freshman quarterback out there, Blackman. I think that's his name. But he looks pretty, he looks like if he can, as he develops, he'll get better and better. And the Florida State team will get better and better, but I think this year is going to be one of those years where it's going to be, the fans need to be patient, because I think you're going to see something special here in a few years. But maybe not this year. Next, we have South Florida over East Carolina. Not a shock here. Charlie Strong's team gets another win. Again, not a shock. That team's pretty good. Definitely, again, them and San Diego State are definitely going to be right there for that group of 5 bid. And, yeah. Northern Illinois gave them a fight, which I'm not shocked about. I think they ended up, though, scoring like 14 points in the fourth quarter. But, I mean, that doesn't mean anything. I mean, that just means it was closer. Or maybe that was the third quarter. I don't remember. All I remember is seeing that Northern Illinois kind of came back a little bit as the game went on. But, it's still San Diego State won, and Northern Illinois is going to give you their all. I mean, they're never going to roll down. I mean, they beat Big Ten teams all the time. They don't care who the opponent is. They're going to play they're going to play good, and they usually do. And against a ranked team like San Diego State, they came out to play and only lost by 6. So, yeah. Next, we got Florida and Vanderbilt. This game was not even. I mean, this game was kind of a game to show that Vanderbilt kind of was at least competitive. They weren't. You look at it and say, well, they didn't win, but at the same point, they were competitive. And I think that's what they needed to capture that complete destruction that occurred at the hands of Alabama. And I think it showed, hey, we may not be, the best team in the world, or, we may not be the best team in the world, but we're still, a decent team, and I think that's what that showed. And then finally, the last game of the week that we're going to cover was Troy beating LSU. Now, when I said this game would be closer than what the spread was, and Troy would give them a fight, I didn't necessarily think that would be the result. I didn't think at all that Troy would win the game. I'm not shocked they gave him a fight. I wouldn't have been shocked if it wouldn't have been 21-17, and I would have said, okay, that's to be expected. Troy is usually a decent program that plays these teams all the time, so they're not intimidated by the name LSU. They're not. I mean, again, they usually don't win, but at least they show up and play. And after a while of playing these teams, you pick one off eventually. But I didn't expect it to be, yesterday. That's for sure. I didn't expect it to be LSU. And I think LSU. It just shows that LSU's program is just completely down the toilet. I mean, they're good. They're still a decent team. I mean, but at the same point, they're not what I think the LSU fan base wants them to be, which is a team that contends for a national title. Obviously, they're not anymore close to that. You can't beat Troy. How the heck do you assume you're going to beat Alabama? Or I think they'll still give Bama. Maybe, I don't know. Even then, though, Alabama's just too good. I mean, that's what it comes down to, is that, years past, you'd say, oh, they'd still give Bama a game. No, this year, it's like, well, they probably won't. Because not even ranked teams are hardly given, I don't know. Bama, though, has that end of their schedule, which they could, end up looking like look human a little bit. But I don't know. If you were to ask me who the national championship would go to right now, I'd say Alabama. I mean, not even a question. But at the same point, is it a lock that says, maybe when they start playing, 4 games in a row against, what could be top 10 talent, they could lose one of those games. And it wouldn't be because they stink or anything. It's just because, you play 4 top 10 opponents in a row, the chances of you losing, are kind of a little high. And it's not because you're bad, it's because, your competition, you just get no break. I mean, yeah, they would get like a 2-month break, but still, but Alabama thrives in that, and plays for that. They love that. So, I don't know. Most teams, you'd say they'd probably lose one game in that stretch. Alabama, you could easily, could probably be favored to win all 4 of those games. And, win them. It'd be favored to win all 4, meaning is in, you'd bet on them winning all 4 of them. Not just, they'd be favored in this. No, they'd be favored. You'd be favored. I would bet on them to win all 4 of those games. But anyway, this has been college football recap. Again, kind of an interesting weekend. Some things did definitely shake out. We learned some things about some teams. We definitely learned that. I guess we can do what we learned about in this week. We learned that Auburn definitely probably is a top-ranked team. They even no matter what you want to say about them, they beat up Mississippi State. I mean, Mississippi State's not a bad team. You beat them that bad. That's they're Auburn. Probably you'll see them hit the top 10 eventually. We also learned that let's see here, that Sam Darnold does have some work he needs to do. I think he's still the top pick in the draft, but I think he definitely has some confidence issues he needs to get resolved if he's going to. I wouldn't say his Heisman hopes are dead. I mean, people tried to say that, and I'm like, I don't know yet. If he comes out and has an amazing second, because this isn't even the second half of the season even started yet. If he comes out in the second half of the season and starts going nuts, they could still easily make the playoff. I mean, it's your worst loss at on Friday night against a really good Washington State team. That's a good loss if you're going to have a loss. If you have to have a loss and you choose where, that's a good one to have. Washington's lost to USC last year. That was a good loss for them to have because it was a game against a really good team. But yeah, definitely learned a little bit about USC. I think USC kind of, you saw that they have some confidence issues that need to get fixed. And I would say that game taught us more about them than Washington State. Washington State, we knew what they were. We knew what they were going to do. I think, in the end, USC should have won that game based on how, if they would have played a little better. And I think if Sam Darnold would have had a little more confidence in himself, I think he would have seen a different game. But I think he's just lost a lot of confidence, and it's tough. We also learned Alabama's really good. I don't think that's a thing we learned, though. I think we knew that. But this week just reaffirmed it. I mean, Ole Miss is not. I mean, again, it's not that bad of it. That's 63-3 against an SEC opponent. That's insane. Just to see that destroy. I mean, Louisville didn't even beat Missouri State that bad. I mean, that's insane. We also learned that Clemson, definitely number 2 team in the country. They're right there with Alabama. I mean, you go into Blacksburg, an environment like that, and really, they dominated. But to be able to do that in Blacksburg is very impressive and definitely puts them, as a team that you could say, definitely in that discussion with Alabama for a championship. I mean, maybe not. I mean, I don't know. The defending champs, you got to give them that, too. They beat Alabama doing this kind of method before, so. I mean, they don't have Sean Watson, but they have some pretty good playmakers, and, they're still firing at all cylinders, which a lot of teams don't after losing what they did. Alabama's an exception to that rule, and it seems like with Dabo Swinney, Clemson kind of is an exception with that, too. Another thing we learned is that Tennessee's might as well just start the rebuilding process. I mean, to be a national title contender. I mean, to be a good team, they're still a bowl team. They're still, a team that, could get 7-8 wins. But I think they're going to have to hit the reset button on their national title hopes because I think, obviously this season, but I'm meaning even in the next season, they just seem to have lost they lost too many pieces. And I think that, and Tennessee just needs to hang around in games because, again, like I said, they seem to get lucky. But, anyway. What else did we learn? I don't think much else. San Diego State guys learned that they need to wear a visor. I'm kidding. Some Northern Illinois guy, I think it's 48 on the defense, poked him in the eye. I didn't get to see the game, but I saw that highlight, and I'm like, come on. Or I guess low light would be considered that. That was just a cheap shot and a dirty play. But I think a lot of people nailed it in the comments because I saw them in piles and stuff. I mean, you read the books in the 70s and stuff like that, and people would chew people's fingers and try to chew people's fingers off and stuff like that. So, from it to be poking people in the eyes, maybe that's an improvement. But, I mean, still, that stuff has no place in football. So, yeah. But anyway, guys, it's been College Football Week 5 recap. An exciting week of good college football. And I hope, the rest of the season turns out, I mean, definitely I think we'll see some drama because teams will lose and then teams will start to move up. And there's definitely some matchups coming up soon that I think will produce some good games. I haven't looked at the schedule next week for next game. There's a few I already know, like Michigan State are playing. That should be a good one. But, yeah. That one's the only one I can think of off the top of my head. I haven't looked at the schedule yet for this next week. I'll do that when I make my preview video. I'll probably do a, going into week 6. I don't know. Maybe I'll just do that with my prediction video. I'll just go through and do all the ranked teams. I don't know. I don't really think I need to do that too much, though, because here and on that one, I kind of go through what I think of them currently, so, I mean, it kind of works out. So, anyway, guys, this has been Week 5 recap. I hope you enjoyed this weekend of college football. Definitely was one that saw a lot of good, a few good games. And also saw a few, blowouts that definitely proved some teams showing their muscle, that's for sure. But anyway, Tyler here, and hope you have a good week. Again, probably either, I don't know when, probably even tomorrow I might come up with that. With the preview video for next week. It depends on what, how much time I have and stuff like that. But, anyway, we'll see you for that. And, yeah, bye.